Welcome to Enjoy the Journey podcast, where we interview expert entrepreneurs and thought leaders to help guide you in pursuit of financial freedom. Presented to you by Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, where we help service-based business owners remove cash flow bottlenecks, maximize their profits, and turn business profits into personal wealth. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Enjoy the Journey podcast. And I've got a great guest with me today, Chris Michael Harris, who's coming all the way from Austin, Texas. And Chris is the founder of StartupU. And I wanted to get him on the show because we haven't really featured anybody who specializes in helping people start and launch new business ideas. So whether you're just getting started in entrepreneurship, whether you've been in business for a while and you're looking to launch a new business idea, now this is going to be action-packed, full of amazing value to help you make sure that you don't make mistakes through the school of hard knocks. Because as we know, starting a new business can be very, very tough, and the failure rates for startups are extremely high. So hopefully we can reduce that as a result of this conversation. So Chris, thanks for joining us, mate. How's things with you?
Jackson, thanks for having me. I'm going to go and apologize to your audience now because everything I say is not going to sound as cool as the things you say because I don't have a cool accent like you do. So I apologize in advance, guys. I speak very boring English compared to my friend here.
That's all right. Most of our audience is Australian, so they're going to be like, oh, this American accent. I love it.
Then I'm going to sound eccentric compared. Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
So Chris, tell us a little about you and your story, mate.
Man, so I just was always doing stuff outside the 9 to 5, right? Just always kind of, even when it wasn't really a popular thing, because people don't realize entrepreneurship wasn't mainstream or popular until like 5, 6, somewhere in that range, right? But 10 years ago when I got started as a real entrepreneur, like people were like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do this? But man, my whole life just been doing things, whether it was grade school, middle school, side hustles, detailing cars, mowing lawns, whatever, right? Something outside of 9 to 5, that model, right? So I got to college and this was the first real business, right? Transitioning into that. Just saw a need, right? I lived in an student apartment in downtown Athens, Georgia, where I went to school at University of Georgia. And these girls are trying to move one of those big fold out sofas down the hallway. And these things are a pain. They're super heavy. And that hallway was like a long hallway. Let's just say that. So my brother and I helped to move it, whatever. Their mom tipped us like $50 a pop. So we go to lease office manager. And we're like, hey, if anybody else needs help, just let us know. We live in the building. She knew of us because she called us the party room. We didn't party at all, I promise. But anyways, we had a reputation, but she knew we were good kids overall. So they put a flyer up. Next thing you know, dude, we made like $8,000 to $10,000 over the next like 45 days in that one building. That's it. Just moving our peers inside that building. So anyways, fast forward a few years, man, and we kind of scaled that out. We were working with other places in that market. Actually got a crazy, I honestly thought it was spam request come through our website. Turned out to be a request to do an installation job. So basically, a trend in student housing, like we're moving the heavy stuff for kids, but then there was a trend where manufacturers are coming in and it was all fully furnished. So students could pay extra and just show up and everything's already provided. And that was a huge trend for like the new buildings they were building. So lo and behold, man, next thing you know, I'm working with 5 of the 7 major furniture manufacturers in the country, and we are in 32 states. I have over 300 employees. We're making multiple millions. And it just went from literally college apartment to that, like almost overnight. It was a wild ride.
That's amazing, dude. Look, what's interesting is that I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and when they get started on their business journeys, there's kind of like this origin story. There's like these things from whether they were a kid or whether they're a teenager of just hustling. And like, I feel that entrepreneurship is in most people's blood. Yeah. Do you feel the same? Do you feel that entrepreneurs are born, or do you think they're made?
Yeah. So I always say this. It's tough to intrinsically say like you were born to do this. I would certainly put myself in that category. So I can't speak to the contrary because I've never been another person, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm being a crazy person because I'm an entrepreneur and we have a tendency of being kind of crazy people. But I do say this, entrepreneurship is a lifestyle, it's not a career. And so I think there is something to be said about the people that are born to be entrepreneurs because it's just an extension of who they are. But people that feel like they've had a job and they're like, I hate this boss, or I hate this environment, or I hate this, or I hate that, and I'm just going to go do it on my own, thinking they're going to be able to turn it on and off at 9 and 5, that is not going to be your experience at all, nor are you going to succeed inside that model. Like you have to live and breathe this stuff to the point so much that you would make just the most unbelievable sacrifices and stare in the face of failure every single day and experience failures every single day and continue to be crazy enough to want to keep doing it. So I do think that it is a part of who we are. I think there's a personality type that embodies who entrepreneurs are. but I don't want to speak to all cases because I have seen some people. And the good thing about the internet today is that there's so many niches and sub niches now that I have seen people that are, let's say it's not binary. There's a spectrum of like really, really intense, like this is like the embodiment of an entrepreneur. And then some people that have some tendencies, but are maybe a little bit more risk averse than like somebody like me who's just absolutely insane, right? So I think that the internet has provided opportunities for people to be a little entrepreneurial, not crazy entrepreneurial, and still make a good living. So I don't want to put people in two different boxes. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man, because we talk about having a lifestyle business. And I think there is a big contrast between a serial entrepreneur like your Gary V, 8, 10 hour days, hustle
Right,
types, and people who are
right,
looking to create a lifestyle business that has
right.
that balance, right? And I think,
Elon Musk compared to somebody that's flipping stuff on Amazon or doing arbitrage business, it's two different
yeah,
types of people. I mean, there's like a universe of difference. So hopefully, well, soon the way he's working, it'll be a physical universe of difference between the two of them. But it's impossible to put those two people in the same bucket.
I agree, 100%. So talk to us a little bit about StartupU. How did this come about? Obviously, we're working
Yeah.
with these furniture manufacturers. You had a multi-million dollar business. You had 300 staff. Where did you realize that you needed to change tact? Or where did you see a new entrepreneurial pursuit or opportunity that resulted in where you are now?
Well, if I'm being totally candid, just getting my ass kicked because it sounds fun to grow that fast, but it's extremely painful. There wasn't a day in my life going through that process that I didn't think to myself, I wish I had known this 6 months ago. This being whatever it was I was learning that day or in that season. Whether, I mean, there were situations where I had come up with 65 extra $1,000 in payroll in a matter of 24 hours before payroll would process. And I had guys scattered all over the country and I'm owed $400,000. Year prior, I'm just trying to get my business off the ground. That would have been something that would have been great to know about what potential lines of funding would have looked like, or resources in a situation where you're in a bind or a pickle like that. Or, hey, I've got a situation with insurance and work comp. How do they factor those rates? It turned out they were actually billing me double the amount that I was supposed to be billed, which is an extra $35,000. I had to fight it on my own because my insurance agent missed the clerical error that was made that would have cost me an extra 35 grand. It would have been nice if I had known what to look for to find the right insurance agent for my specific industry that knew what he was talking about, because it ended up being the fact that he was just unfamiliar with our industry. The point is that throughout this process, sometimes entrepreneurs, we get a little too cute, meaning like we think this idea has to be like this grandiose, like really sexy thing, right? That like is going to put us on the cover of a magazine. And at the end of the day, I started a moving company, not glamorous at all, not what I went to school for, but I saw an opportunity. And I just went for it. And it turned out it was a big opportunity. In the middle of that struggle, I saw another opportunity. Nobody knows how to do this shit. Nobody knows how to do it. And formal education didn't prepare me for it. And I went to a really good school. So I guess it's just seeing another opportunity and seeing the huge failure rate, right? Because opportunity aligned with a big problem. Big problem is entrepreneurs fail at just an absurd rate. To a large degree, I think in some cases you have a marginally better chance of winning the lottery than being a successful startup after like 5 years. And I don't think I'm overstating that. It's crazy the failure rate, right? So I just saw an opportunity, and fortunately having done it gave me a little bit of sense of unique qualification. And I think that's really missing in today's internet space. There's a lot of people that are talking about entrepreneurship. I talk about we live in the age of information. It doesn't mean it's good information. It doesn't mean it's going to help you. In fact, I think the hardest thing now is discernment. It's figuring out what I'm going to actually
Yeah.
listen to. So I just felt like there was an opportunity to help people, teach them what I did, mechanize it further for myself so that I can repeat it again, in which I've done almost 3 times, working on a third time, and then teaching other people how to do it to increase the likelihood they can succeed at doing this. And so StartupU literally became a thing as it's kind of unfolded over the years.
Beautiful. I love that. I agree 100% that small business education globally is shit. It's terrible. I did an MBA. When you think about, okay, MBA is meant to be the epitome of business education. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
be a really good business person, you get an MBA. And I did my MBA after being in business for probably about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
And I was able to breeze through the entire thing with high distinctions without studying because I understood the practical application of these things. But to be
got
fair,
it.
there was probably a handful of lessons that would actually work in a small business because these are all big
That's great.
corporate strategies. When it comes to small business owners, they're getting all of this information that's probably not relevant to them in their current stage of business. And I see so many startups getting caught up in the shiny objects, the
Yep.
things that look really sexy that all of the big names are doing.
Yep.
And they're not ready for that yet. And it's
Nope.
about, you're exactly right. It's about how do you curate the content to know what to listen to at the right time. That's important, as important of working out what not to listen to, because it can really send you astray. So talk to us about what you see as being the biggest mistakes that startups make when it comes to getting their idea off the ground.
Okay. So we kind of touched on the first one, which is your idea is based on what you think is cool, not what people are willing to buy or people deem a real problem that requires a solution of which you are offering. I think that is like first and foremost. So people go
Yeah.
out, they pay all this money, they hire an attorney, they trademark all this stuff, and they don't even know if there's anybody out there that actually wants what they're offering or what they're presenting. Like that's crazy. So for me, we try to get a little too fancy with that. So for one, that's that. Now, how do you accomplish that? Well, I'm a big believer of sitting down and actually, and people want to jump to surveys, and I'm not against surveys in terms of hitting economy of scale, right? Like really scaling out and getting a lot of data. But your first time, right? We're talking about the first time. I do that now. I send surveys, but your first time, I want you out on the street or hitting people up on social media or whatever to get one-on-one FaceTime with them, having a conversation like Jackson are having right now. And I want you to record those conversations if at all possible, leading with the number one most important. This is something my mentor taught me, and it's fundamentally just so important, whether it's a new business or a new product or a new service or whatever it is. It could be other aspects in your business. Your business already exists. It doesn't matter. Repeat this process. Interview at least 10 people in depth, starting with the question, when it comes to X, right? X being the problem, what is your single biggest challenge? So when it comes to something you address in your life, what is your single biggest challenge? And then here's the key: shut the hell up and listen. Because then the mistake people make is they start guiding the conversation into an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
It's, oh, well, guess they say the problem. You get one hint that it's even remotely insinuating that it could be your solution. You're like, well, guess what? And it's like immediately into infomercial mode, right? And you can't do that. You have to then figure, okay, how do I get into the granular aspects to ask them further questions that lead them to wherever they lead them? And then I have to figure out what to make of that. And here's why that's so important. You need to get into the granular aspects of asking those questions, because what you're going to do is this, and this is a huge, huge fun. Like if you can get this, you're like light years ahead of everybody else. I promise you. Because what people do is they don't look at it as a compounding effort. They do those interviews and then they just go out and they start creating stuff on social media. And it's like, well, no. We've got to build to regurgitating what we got from these conversations into the product and then into the marketing to sell the product. So then what we're going to do is we're going to extract some of the commonalities of what people said. So if they said, I really want to start a business, but I don't know about Facebook ads. Well, I'm not going to go put on my website, we teach you how to do online advertising. No. That's not what people said. What they said was they want to know how to do Facebook advertising. So that's what we're going to regurgitate. It's your job to be the detective to figure out what's coming up most often. What are those things that people are mentioning the most? Following up with them if you still have questions. But then what we're going to do is we're going to build a product and start splintering off marketing messages based off of the feedback that we received. There's no reason. You don't have to be a cutesy salesperson or cutesy marketing person. It's literally just data and analysis and regurgitation. So that's it, right? So that's what we're going to be working towards, actually launching a product using data from your market. And then the mediums don't matter at that point because you built a vehicle. Now, there's other things you're going to learn, the X's and O's of using those platforms. But larger part, what we're going to do is as long as we speak the language of our target audience, of our target market, we can meet them where they're at. Next, we're going to do, so that's understanding the market. That's understanding how you're going to develop the product. Then we're going to go to what you've probably heard before, which is an ideal client avatar profile. So we're going to take these same 10 people that we talked to, and this is really important, and I skipped over this, and I apologize for doing so. Those 10 people should not be mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, and neighbor. They should be potential real customers, right? And the reason being is that you're going to take those people you talk to, and you're going to go do some a little bit of detective work, right? So you're going to go online, you're going to look at the things they like, the pages they follow, the ways they interact, and literally you're just going to look at it's following the breadcrumbs, right? So looking how people interact, the pages they like, the things they do. You can even connect with them on LinkedIn and look at the reviews they leave for other people or the reviews people leave for them. That tells you what's important to them and what they value. So there's so many ways that we can glean and detect who these people are so that we can use that information. And if we're doing paid ads, guess what? You can nail down on your demographic specifics with their actual interests, not you guessing. So if you're seeing people are following Tony Robbins, just a random arbitrary example, I wouldn't suggest targeting Tony Robbins, fans of Tony Robbins, because it doesn't actually convert well. But just for the sake of this conversation, you're going to use that instead of just guesswork. So it makes a huge, 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 profound difference. Okay, so we've got all that going, right? We got that worked out. We're working on the product, working on a solution. We're using what our market told us. We're developing the product. We gathered what they were willing to pay for it. Next is, how do I financially transition into running this business? People end up doing is they do what I just said, and maybe they nail all of that. Maybe they're really off and running. They've nailed their market, they've nailed the product. They really understand their market. They understand their ideal client avatar profiles. They quit their job because they're like, this is going to work. I know. And they quit their job and they borrow against their house and they do all this crazy stuff and they burn through their 401k and their retirements and it's just ridiculous stuff, right? So here's what we want to do. we want to have at least 6 to 12 months realistically that you could fund yourself and your business if you didn't make a single dollar. Now, that might be a challenge for a lot of people. And what we're going to do then is we're going to analyze your financial situation and we're going to say, okay, here's the deal. You have two options if that's the case. And I recommend this regardless, but let's put yourself in one of these two boxes. You're going to be a night and a weekend warrior, or you're going to be a side hustler. Okay. So what's a night and weekend warrior? Night and weekend warrior is somebody that has a job 9 to 5, has kids, responsibilities, mortgage, etc. They're going to find 2 hours, maybe in the morning, 2 hours, 4 hours a day, if you can. 4 hours a day is the general rule that you want to put into this. So let's say 2 hours in the day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. That's what you're going to put into your business. You're going to go to your 9 to 5, but you need 2 in the morning, or 2 at night, or whatever, however you want to break it down, and then weekend. So you're going to keep your job, you're going to keep that income coming in, but you're going to make sure that you are working on your business, hopefully 4 hours a day. Let's say 20 hours a week to be safe. If you want to do it on the weekends, you can do that too. Be like, hey, my weekends are dedicated to work on my business. Fantastic. That's what you're going to work on. But 20 hours a week is what you're shooting for. Let's say you're young. Let's say you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Let's say, whatever, I can Uber. I've got a sofa and I live downtown, right? I'm here in Austin. People come here for festivals and music and stuff like that. I'm going to put my little sofa on here for $30 a night because young kids can do wild stuff like that, right? So that's what you're going to do. You're going to DoorDash. You're going to Uber. I mean, I swear, maybe Jackson, you feel the same way. If those things, the gig economy, if that was around, right, being able to do these side hustles were around when I was coming up, oh my God, it's literally, it is the entrepreneur's gift that these
It's a
things
game
exist
changer
because you
because it
can
gives you full flexibility, right?
it's ridiculous. You can literally go make money whenever you want and just turn on an app. For me to find side hustles, I had to go ask friends and do some research and dig into things and drive on. I mean, it was ridiculous the amount of
Yeah.
length I had to go to find those things, but it is your best friend. So figure out where you are in that category because, again, we need to continue to sustain while we make a transition. It is not the switch of a light, right? You're not going to go from one day I'm in job, one day eventually you're going to have that epiphany moment where you're able to make that full transition, but we want to slowly move into leaving job into business. So those are the kind of the general recommendations I have, 6 to 12 months, if at all possible. If not, or probably in addition to, put yourself in one of those two boxes, night and weekend warrior or side hustler.
Makes perfect sense, man. And look, I think the biggest challenge here that I see startups come up against is that they've done their niching exercise, they've understood the pain points, and they've got a workable product or service. They're actually got something that is solving a real world problem that people are happy to pay to have solved. They then start their business and they're doing this side hustle thing, and there comes a crossroads because you're exactly right. It's not like a switch. There typically is going to be some sort of J curve where they need to commit to one or the other full time,
Right.
but there's a gap. So they might be earning their 6-figure corporate income and then they're in their business and their business is just getting off the ground.
Right.
And I guess what's your advice? Do they jump into it full time, or what point do they commit 100% to their business to give it the time and attention that it deserves? Because it is hard to try and spin two plates at once, right?
Right. So hopefully if you're doing the reason I like the night and weekend warrior or the side hustler is because it gives you the opportunity to really get that hands-on, roll up your sleeves experience of doing your business. What I have seen typically, it maybe takes a little bit longer, maybe it goes faster. It could work out either way. What I have seen happen though is people get to the point where they subsidize their income doing one of those two paths to the point that it's an easy decision to make, or at least they're close enough to subsidizing their income that they're able to financially make a very educated decision on being able to do that. Now that's going to be contingent upon your situation. If you have a significant other that has a full-time job and a salary and benefits, your situation is different than somebody that is solo doing it by themselves and doesn't have any savings piled up. Bottom line is this, I'm a big advocate of not skipping the steps. It doesn't mean you can't do the steps faster or more efficiently, rather, is probably a better way to put it. There's an aspect and there's a process of literally doing the most minimum viable aspect, minimum viable product of what you do, the most basic iteration of what you do. And you need to be able to give yourself the time to be able to grow into learning how to do this new thing you're doing. So I'm a big advocate of doing it right, not doing it just fast for the sake of doing it fast. And I know it doesn't entirely answer the question you're asking me, but I think it's important. Because a lot of people, they're just trying to get to the point where they just run this business full time and sit behind a desk and hire other people. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to swallow your pride and put your humility aside and really learn the in the trenches aspects of what you do. I know people that have literally been like making tea bags in their home and have to use an entire bedroom in their home because they were starting a tea business. I found him on my show. Like there's always, Damon John was hustling clothes out of the back of the hood of his car, the trunk of his car at New York Yankee games. We all have our very humble beginning story. So my point is this, all of that stuff is going to pay off. The reason we hit scale at the rate that we did in any business I've been involved with is because we took the time to really get in those trenches. So my point is that gap is going to be exponentially truncated when you really, really immerse yourself, understand what you're doing, give yourself the permission and the freedom to really engage in that business, because the things you learn are the building blocks to hit that launching point, to hit scale at a much faster rate, exponentially higher than other people that tried to skip that work.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, mate, because where I see most businesses come undone is that they do not have the suitable foundations because they haven't done that work. And it's setting those foundations, doing the testing, seeing what works,
Right.
iterating, and laying that solid foundation that then sets you up for scale. So I think that's really good
Right.
advice.
Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to work hard. I know people are probably thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do my job and put in 20 hours a week on my business? Or how am I going to do side hustles? Like, you are going to work hard, and be mindful of the fact that too long of a period. And this is why I talk about really making sure you understand your audience and really doing that calculated work and getting mentors and really being engaged with your growth as an entrepreneur, because there is going to be a shelf life in which you cannot keep up with that pace for like years and years and years. And most of the time, what I see is businesses, they just kind of, they never actually quit the business. They just kind of flame out and stop doing it because they
Mm.
get so tired of being in that really intense environment of having to do side hustles or work after in the evening. So it is important that you are being very, very strategic about the velocity of you getting to your job or your business, or rather from your job to your business full time. It's very important.
Beautiful. Makes perfect sense. Great. So let's talk about your ideal client, mate. So in Startup U, who do you want to work with? Who's an ideal client for you?
Making the transition is where I've seen people botch it the most. Once people kind of have an understanding of what they're doing, or at least they're off and running and they're generating revenue, stuff like that, those people are great. I do work with those. Those are clients of mine, the people that are hitting scale. The big opportunity to help people and the big opportunity for where people are stuck, right? It's a really good word. I think stuck is probably the best way to explain it. You have people online and they see people playing on Instagram, or they see people doing whatever on YouTube, and they're doing nice hustle work and they're taking pictures with models and rented cars and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of information out there and what appears to be success. And so you have these people that are somewhere on this spectrum of like, oh, that looks cool. Let me try this. Oh, this looks cool. Let me try that. And you said shiny objects earlier. I think we live in an era of shiny objects. So you have people that aren't going through building the foundational blocks, the strategies that we're talking about, because there is a streamlined strategy that gives you the best chance for success to transition away. So where I come in with Startup U, what we help people do is universities are the transition from childhood to adulthood. That's what university is. It's not just the education, it's the growth as a human being. So Startup U is why we went with the university kind of angle on it. It's literally the same thing. We are literally there for you during those transitional years from job into business. That's what we help people do. So anybody that's thinking about anywhere you are in that area, if you've been trying stuff and you're just stuck, you've been doing it for 6 months and you're like, man, I was getting all this engagement on Instagram, but now I'm getting nothing. And it's just, I post things and I don't even know why I'm posting it. I just posted stuff because it's become a diary for me, right? Or I'm doing YouTube, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know. Maybe I should do a podcast. I don't know. I heard Facebook ads. Everybody says do an email list because that's where the money is. There's just a lot of stuff that people are doing. And there's not a real structure or strategy behind doing it other than the sake of just doing it. So anywhere on that spectrum is where we come in. We help people go through and actually focus on the foundational stuff of learning what that looks like, and then proven strategies that we know that work across any business now. This is our third 7-figure build. And my wife and I, before we were 30, we built 3 multi-million-dollar companies. So obviously something that we've done has worked, and we've tried to really mechanize that for people to make that transition successfully.
Beautiful. Fantastic. And if somebody's interested, they've watched this podcast, they've loved what you had to say, how are they best to get in touch with you and the team?
We did put together a resource that we usually will typically offer to people that are interested in transition, stuff like that. It's the ultimate startup checklist. So that checklist is literally a 7-8 page PDF where people can literally download, have it for life. And it gives you all the things you should be doing. It's literally just that. So it's USC, like ultimate startup checklist, download.com. Now, the cool thing, kind of a bonus for your audience, is we just completed how to get your first 100 customers in 100 days, that you'll get an instant, immediate invite with early access to that when you download the checklist. So anybody that downloads the checklist, you immediately get the invite to the class, 45-minute free class people get access to, which literally some of our best tips on how to get those first 100 customers. It's a huge fundamental milestone for people to go through. So you get access to that as well. And then on social media, it's at Hey CMH, hey like hello, CMH, and then heycmh.com.
Beautiful. Amazing, mate. So if you had to give one last piece of advice to our listeners to help them take the next step on the entrepreneurial journey and realize the success that they want, what would that one last tip be?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is we tend to focus on the external. I like to focus on the things I can control. And so for me, one of the biggest things that just kind of opened up an entirely new limitless ceiling of potential was mastering my habits. I think that we greatly overstate, at least we do in the States. I don't know, on your side of the world if it's the case, but I think for entrepreneurs being type A people, one of the things we do the most is we focus on willpower and discipline, and we greatly overstate the importance of those two things. We tend to think that the people that are successful, they just have this superhuman ability to be disciplined and have all this willpower and tenacity and motivation, and they're just that way all the time. And fundamentally, studies have shown that's not the case. What these people do is they build what's called keystone habits. So they really are intentional about the habits that they build and the impact that those habits have on everything else that they do. So if you build solid habits in your life, if you're able to continue to level up and build a system around yourself that works for you, not what works for Jocko Willink or Gary Vaynerchuk or myself or Jackson or whomever, what works for you, and put in those habits that make you thrive, everything around you, your relationships are going to benefit, your business is going to benefit, everything that you do, your fitness, your health, everything is going to benefit. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you. So that's something that I'm really focused on, what I can control, what I can control. Being a creature of habit, which is what we are, we're either building good habits or bad habits. I tend to focus on what can I do today to tweak, modify, or continue to greatly enhance the habits that I'm building for myself that are going to lead to the successes around me.
Great advice, mate. Look, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. This has been phenomenal insights that I think are going to help many people who are getting started on their entrepreneurial journey or looking to take this full time. We'll include all the links in the show notes. Guys, this has been another episode of the Enjoy the Journey podcast. I appreciate you joining us. And Chris, thanks again for your time. We'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, man.